What's going on? Jake here with Uncommon EDC, and today I'm taking a look at a few budget utility knives. And so I have a ton of these, so really wanted to parse it down to a more manageable video length, just show a few of them. There's 5 different ones here, 6 total on the table, but 2 of them are the same. And so used a few criteria to narrow it down. The first one I already mentioned, budget. These are all under $20 with one exception. And I made an exception for that one because there is an under $20 version. And so still can get it for under that price point. The second pretty big criteria is that they are compact. And so have a bunch of budget ones that are not compact. These all will fit in your 5th pocket. So that's eliminating some of those like the Stanley or the Craftsman or even the Milwaukee Fastback. And so have a bunch of those options too. We'll probably put them in a future video, but for now these are going to be more compact. And then the third criteria is a little bit more of a minor one, but wanted stuff that you can still buy. And so I have a few that I don't know if they make them anymore, or I just couldn't find them, don't know who makes them in some cases, and so no point in putting them out there and showing you if they're not something you can actually pick up. So with those in mind, let's go ahead and dive in. And this first one isn't about the specific version, but this style of utility knife. And this is a really common one. These both have graphics on them. I forget who I bought this one from, but I know this one came from Violent Little Machine Shop. It's $6. This one I think was around $10, but it's actually just a sticker. And so they sell non-graphic versions that are just generic brands or sometimes real brands that you'd even recognize at a lot of hardware stores for about $1. So super cheap option. And like I said, probably one of the most common versions that you'll find. You can get them in bulk for even cheaper than $1 if you need a bunch of them. But they're really cool. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these because I kind of wanted to show some alternatives to this. This is what I carried for probably my first 3 or 4 jobs. So I carried these for several years and they work well. They're perfectly fine. But if you want a different form factor, different look even, there's some other options here. But the way this works is simple. Push on the bottom, pops out the front. You have a really small corner of usable edge, but more than enough for everything that I was using it for. And these are small, compact, and cheap, so if you lose them, you can lend them out. Obviously, especially with the non-brand ones, they're $1. And the nice thing is that it uses just a standard razor blade. And so you pull it out to get access to that. And both of these are the same actually. So they put their graphics on the same version. The writing on both of them is exactly the same. So pretty sure they got them from the same place. But to get that blade, just pull it out. And since you're only using one corner, you can just turn it around before you replace it and have a new sharp end that hasn't really been touched. You can also pull this out and use it as a scraper if you need to, and so nice that you have that option. Really easy to do, and once you're done, you just slide it back in there. And ideally these are pretty tight, and so getting it in there might take a second, but once you do, you just push it on the back until it's all the way in, and you are good to go. And so these are simple, cheap, and a really excellent option. Probably the more, I guess, accident-prone option of any of these, but I carried them for years and never got more than a minor cut or a small hole in my pocket. It's happened, but it's not, something that's happening constantly. And so that's just because they can push out in your pocket. And usually when you get them, they start out pretty tight, but they loosen up over time. You can always squeeze them down, well, obviously not by hand, but with a pair of pliers or something to try and smash them and make them a little bit tighter if that's happening to you a lot. But this is kind of the ideal for me, where you can push them pretty easily with your thumb and don't have a lot of pressure. Some of them are so tight you have to push them to a harder surface to get them out. That's not the case with this one. But like I said, wanted to keep that one short. So I'm gonna move on to this one, which is the only one I probably wouldn't recommend. If you're gonna buy one utility knife, it probably wouldn't be this one. And it's a very decent, so I'll get to why I wouldn't recommend it. But this is the Olight or Otacle. I never know how they want to pronounce that, Otacle or Otacle. But this version is carbon fiber on one side, titanium on the other. It still comes in at under $20, but they've done a few different materials at this point. Some of them are even a little bit cheaper. And it's actually a really decent little utility knife. It has a bottle opener on the front, a bit driver on the back, although there's nothing to hold it in place. So I always find these kind of ones a little bit inconvenient because their bit just kind of slides in and out. The easiest way to do it is to put the screw into the screw first and then just use the bit to turn it and take it off when you're spinning it. And so that works okay. Nice that it has it. Don't get a ton of use out of it, but it is nice that it's there. It also has a little pry corner or flathead screwdriver, and so a lot of different functionality. This one just slides out, and there you can see this is a button. You don't actually have to use that if you don't want to, but I keep it unlocked so you can just kind of slide it in and out. But if you want it to be a little bit more secure, you just turn this lock on the back, and you can still actuate it, but it takes a little bit more pressure, and it's honestly not that different. So you do have to push down to get it, but it's very little pressure, and so I don't really notice that much of a difference. Now, the reason I don't recommend this one if you're only going to buy one utility knife is it uses a proprietary blade. And so everything else about it is really nice, but that proprietary blade kind of defeats one of the main advantages of carrying a utility knife. Obviously, you may carry it to preserve your regular knife, or because you don't want to have to sharpen your regular knife throughout the day. And so the ability to just swap out a blade, and these can be sharpened, but they're really cheap, and usually you can just turn around the blade. And so the ability to swap out a blade is a really nice thing, and this one, you can swap them out. They sell those proprietary blades, and they're not super expensive or anything like that. But with any of the other ones, if you're working somewhere where everyone's using a utility knife, you can probably just ask for one. If you don't have any replacements, someone probably has one. And in the event that no one has one, you can just go to any hardware store or even like a Walmart and pick them up. They're standard, non-proprietary, and so that's a really nice thing. People also, I've never really used these for travel, but people also like to put these in carry-ons. You just throw away the blade, buy one when you get there. Can't do that with this. If you find out, it's time to swap the blade, you realize you don't have another one, you're gonna have to wait a few days to get one in the mail because you have to order them from Olight. And so it's fine if you have a bunch of them like I do, but if you're only buying one, probably wouldn't buy that one. Now this next one's one of my favorites. It's also kind of the bulkiest of the bunch, but pretty small still in terms of just thickness and weight. The other ones are a little bit longer, but this is one of my favorites, and this functions like a regular pocket knife. It swings out the side on a pivot here. It actually has a liner lock, and because of the way it operates, you have really good real estate to get a nice grip on here. It's super ergonomic, and one that's not, it's compact, but you still feel like you get a full handle on that. And so this one's really nice. It also has a lot of exposed blade, and so you have a little bit more of a usable blade there. And so like this one a lot. I do have one modification into this one, and without that modification, you're looking at 14 bucks on Amazon right now. I think it was like $13.88 when I looked before this video. The modification is just this thumb stud. Usually there's a flathead screw there, and the thumb stud serves two purposes. The obvious one, to make it one-handed operational instead of having to pinch it to open it. But the non-obvious one is, in order to swap out this blade, there's a screw here that you have to remove. And so this means that you don't have to carry a screw. You can just turn this by hand and unscrew it, change the blade, and then turn it back in by hand. So I got this thumb stud from Ian over at Phytonics. He has them on his Etsy store in a bunch of different colors. I have purple here, but there's tons of different colors, and they're only 7 bucks. So all in all, you're looking at around 21 bucks, which is just over the budget, but you don't have to obviously get that thumb stud. It is a really nice quality of life improvement in terms of using it, and it's still really budget friendly. You only have to buy it once. And so really like this option, especially with the thumb stud, but it's still a really great option without. This one also has a pocket clip if you like that. I tend to just throw these in a 5th pocket, which is why I wanted in this video for them to be 5th pocket carryable and without a pocket clip, but it's there if you want it. It's a pretty wide one, but overall really great. Now in this closed position, it's only 2.85 inches long. It gets all the way up to 5.1 inches open, and I weighed it in at 2.35 ounces. So this is the heaviest of the bunch. I didn't mention these ones. I didn't weigh them. They're super light, but they're about 4 inches, and this one's about 3 inches long. A little over. Now this next one is the one where I mentioned that it's over the budget, and this is the Guiltek RUK version 2, but it's a really cool option. This one's in an anodized aluminum and has a bunch of additional features. Now the version 1 of this is exactly $20, and so if you just want a cheaper version of this, they do have that available on their site for $20, and that's called the RUK S. But there's an even cheaper version than that called the RUK P, which is plastic bodied, and that one's only $10, so super cheap option, and so had no problem including this one on the list, even though this version is $35. And so we'll talk about the tools in a moment, but it comes with these Tajima blades installed, and they sell those on their site, but just uses standard utility blades. And the way this one operates, unlike the others that have a button or switch to slide them out, this one applies some pressure to the back of the blade with this little bar here. And so in order to slide it out, it won't ever shake out. In order to slide it out, you put some pressure on the blade and then just slide it directly, and you can stop wherever you want. There's not specific stopping points you have to stop at. And so that's kind of a nice option. And then one thing that's cool is when the blade's out, it has no utility there, but when it's closed, you can see there's this little cord cutter here. And so that's really nice, and it's deep enough that you don't have to worry about your finger accidentally getting in there from really any direction. I've never had an issue with that, but really nice to have that small cord cutter there. Now in terms of other functions, this one of course has a bottle opener because any multifunction tool needs them, but also has this little pry bar at the end. This is aluminum, so I wouldn't do any serious prying, but it should be fine for anything else. And then it can also be used as like a flathead screwdriver if you have a big screw, like a base plate of a camera, that sort of thing, it works well. And then one that you may not even notice is on the back side, and that's this little bit turner. And so there's no magnets in this one either, but it kind of has the retention system, like a detent retention system, unlike the Otacle. And so that works really well. So same 1/4 inch bit, it kind of snaps into place. And like I said, there's no magnet holding it into place, but it also doesn't shake loose. It's very usable. And so that's really cool. You still might, depending on how much access you have to take it off and put it back on to get into the corner. But instead of removing it from here, you can just pull out the screw, go back. And so it's a little bit easier to use than the Otacle for me. So I like this one a little bit better. And this one's really cool. I may order some of those plastic versions. They don't have all of the tools or maybe any of the extra tools. It's just a utility blade that slides out the front. But for $10, they're really, really good deal. And so, cool company making some really cool things all around these utility knives for the most part. Now this last one is going to be a little bit different, and there's different colors of this one. This version is, well, actually I probably should mention the weight and size on this one, 3.37 inches long and only 0.68 ounces. So extremely lightweight, more similar to these ones than any of the others. And so like that a lot about this one as well. But this one is the Gerber Prybrid X. So the second Gerber that we have on here. And this one at first I wasn't a huge fan of. It's grown on me a little bit, and so it may make its way back into my rotation, but I got it. It was really gritty, and so I never really carried it. But it seems to have smoothed itself out a little bit. It's still a little bit gritty, but a lot easier to actuate. It required a decent bit of pressure before. Now it's kind of worked its way in, but it comes pre-wrapped in this paracord. I didn't add this. And so this version with the silver and the blue paracord is $19 right now on Amazon. The black stonewash version I think is a little bit more. It goes over that $20 budget, but this one is under $20. And you can see it has this bunch of tools on the back that this lanyard tends to get in the way of, but it has these pry tools that will double as screwdrivers, has a nail puller as well, and a bottle opener, of course, and then another lanyard hole if this one wasn't enough for some reason. But a decent little tool, and this one doesn't use standard utility blades. This uses X-Acto number 11 utility blades, and so a little bit smaller, but you know, almost the same access you're getting on any of the other ones in terms of blade access, and perfectly usable. It slides out. It has two positions, the closed and the open, and then in order to change the blade, you just press this in and then slide it out even further, and it locks in there with this little ball detent, and you just lift this up. It's hard to get your nail under there. Lift this up, and then you can pull that right back out, and then just make sure to press it all the way back in to get it locked into place. Don't think I went far enough there. And then you can just slide it back into the handle, and it's ready to go. And so this is a pretty cool option, $19. I like the exchangeable blade a lot more, but this one has those additional functions if that's something you're looking for. little bit more stylized than the exchanger blade, but I do prefer that EAB Light. And there is a full-size version. I don't have that one, so can't speak on that, but there is a larger version of this as well. But that's it for today's video. Like I said, I have more of these, so I may make more of these in the future with different criteria. But within these criteria, are there any others that you recommend me checking out? Always like these kind of things. I prefer a knife, and I don't carry these daily anymore. They're mostly just sitting around my house in different places, and I do use them, but don't necessarily get as much pocket time as my knives anymore. Sometimes I'll throw them in like pouches and stuff like that as a secondary or tertiary blade, but for the most part have moved mostly towards knives. But it's still nice to have these when you don't want to destroy a knife, especially when you're opening packages and stuff. They're gonna get a bunch of tape residue everywhere and stuff like that. It's nicer to do that on these throwaway blades. But yeah, definitely let me know if you recommend any others that match this criteria, or if you have any of these, what your thoughts are on them, and anything else you'd like in the comments below. As always, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification button, and I hope you have a great one. Take care.